Right. Well, morning, everybody. It's lovely to have you here having this very important discussion around staff development and the sort of change and pivot in staff culture as a result of the Action Research Programme. You all know me. I'm Rachel Clark. Apex Educate is my organisation, and I led the Anti-Racist Action Research Programme across the schools in the Vale and other schools, but particularly across the Vale, and had a fabulous few years doing so. Welcome, Martine. Do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Hello, I'm Martine Booker-Southard, and I've been working with Rachel, and so far 43 schools have taken part in action research to be more actively anti-racist across our local authority. So I'm a local authority officer that supports the schools to be, I don't know, make sure there is a culture of kindness that runs through it. So good morning, everybody.
And Stu, welcome.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Stuart McDonald. I'm assistant head teacher at St Cyrus School in Penarth. I was lucky enough to be on the pilot action research project with Rach and with Martine. And yeah, it is orientated our school really just hugely with regards to how we can make all of our learners feel worthy and valued.
Thank you, Stu. And I remember that first session because the first session starts always with reflecting on books that have been read. And there were some questions and thoughts shared as a result of that. And I always remember your response, which was of righteous indignation. And, this is just ridiculous and unjust. And I know that encouraging staff to carry out some of the same reading is something that you've done too. Do you want to talk us through what you've done and what you do to cue them in to support effective development and reflection? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, so we had obviously I brought my props. Okay, so we did these two books for the summer reading. And this one in particular, Reading by the Pool. And my wife read it afterwards. So she used the expression, look, you just read it and then you shut up and you listen and you shut up and you read, and it's your time now as a 43-year-old man, I think it was at the time, to really take on actually what the thoughts of others are. And it was just after the Me Too movement, where obviously we'd had this whole landscape shift with regards to taking on something other than male viewpoint.
Mm.
And then actually with this one, I mean, this one was a joy to read and was like actually, I read it through and it was like it was softer. And then
Mm.
this one was abrasive, and I had to keep putting it down and then picking it back up. I'd come. I was on holiday. I was like, right, but what two wonderful books they are. I'm an English teacher anyway, right? So I get really excited about books. And that was the perfect starting point for me to
Mm.
shut up and listen as a now middle class white 44-year-old man, now 47-year-old man, who is a teacher. And obviously that demographic, that's a brilliant Venn diagram for arrogance and for knowing that your opinion is right. And therefore actually this was a really nice humbling and a really painful humbling actually.
Yeah.
So what we did was then I took one of the first things I thought was that everyone that I could possibly get to needed to read these two books, but this one was softer and this one was a bit more abrasive. So what we did was I picked the characters in my staff that I thought I would be able to get that going
Yeah.
with, and then that going with. And then I sent it around. We got I think we got 40 odd books, and they all just arrived in people's pigeonholes. And some people knew they were coming, some people just they arrived. And no, everyone likes a brand new book, don't they?
Yeah.
Apart from my PE teacher who wanted to listen to on the podcast, and I said
Yeah.
I said I wasn't going to buy in the podcast, but that was acceptable.
Good.
So
And
yes,
how did they respond? What did they say, or what were their
it's
sort
worth.
of
Look, is it worth me reading this? This is the
yeah, go
bookmark
for it.
I gave them, right? So I gave them this bookmark, and right, I'll read it quick. So stay with me. So this was from me to basically whoever would pick this up. Following on
Yeah.
from work done with No Boundaries and Show Racism Red Card and the school's anti-racism agenda, I thought I would share this text with you as part of two books which are available for reading. This text blew my mind, and whilst it was at times challenging, it changed my thinking and perspective on race in the UK. Race in the UK. Having read it, it has informed my thinking and approach to even the most everyday details of my life since. I'm sharing this as I feel this is one of the most important texts I have read in recent times. Please read, and if possible, keep a journal to detail your thoughts and feelings. All I ask is that once read, you complete the Google Forms link, and then I won't buy you an audiobook, but I believe both texts are available in this format if you prefer. Thanks for reading. I genuinely believe this may help us make things better. And that was like a laminated bookmark in every one of the books that I gave out. And then what I'd ask is that they handed it over to somebody and gave that book a kind of review. And
Yeah.
actually, sometimes people would come back and go, "Look, I haven't managed to get through all of it." So I
Yeah.
would switch to books, and I'd say, "Well, look, read this bit, and this bit of that book."
Yeah.
But it started the conversation that then was part of the jigsaw because we were
Mm.
also having brilliant speakers in to talk about decolonization and brilliant speakers in to talk about to give different voices to the work that we were doing in school. So it
Yeah.
was just one of those areas with which we then rolled out at different levels and at different paces and to different people. But the
Yeah.
books were a really good starting point because they were physical, they looked good, they were like there. Like I was reading one of them and a parent stopped in the reception, was like, "What are you reading?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm reading that as part of like the stuff that I'm doing." And like me and him get on a house on fire now, like a Somali gentleman that just like the connection that we had after he'd seen that I was reading that was huge. It was a lovely thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's I don't know whether I answered your question, but a good bit of
Yeah.
waffle.
You
Way.
have no waffling. Really important comments because I think the difficulty sometimes with leadership is how to gain that buy-in. And sometimes as leaders, we feel that, we've just always got to be strong and we always have to have all of the answers and blah, 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 blah. I think that, what you're demonstrating and talking about here is sharing vulnerability and your own reflections. And that's serving as a really good, accessible way in to support staff to feel vulnerable or to understand that you also found bits of it a challenge. And I think that modeling that is really, really important, particularly when we're thinking about how to change or tweak or adjust staff culture to get it to where we want it to be. So I think that the bookmark is a really good idea. Martine, come in if you want, and Stu too. But in terms of navigating resistance, one of the parts of the action research was around dealing with challenge. And I want you to reflect on how that work that we did together supported your confidence with dealing with challenging situations and conversations about race and racism, either from staff, from learners, from families. But I know, Martine, you sort of oversee all of the schools, whereas Stu, your school is the one. But talk me through how that part of the program better prepared you with that level of confidence needed and courage. And then Martine on a larger scale.
Um, so I've alluded to it already, right? But I think probably this is important. The nature of being a teacher, an educational professional, whatever, yeah, you get up, you tell people that you know everything 5 hours, 6 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is you become that person, and we've all met teachers who are just like they just know everything, and there are other professionals that run away from teachers at parties, like because there's an arrogance there. There's a I know everything, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had a problem with engaging. Let's say, for instance, there was a situation where there was a racist incident. I
Yes.
would. I would engage with it openly and honestly. The difference being is that I would do that, but I would think I knew. And the research that I did, and I've stood up in plenty of different places since working with you, is that what I then learned was that I didn't know the things that I thought I knew. There was a whole mass of ignorance there. And so, even though I wasn't a bad person before for getting up and thinking I was doing a really good thing and doing that, actually, what I was I think that as much as I wore my good intentions on my sleeve, right
Mm,
here, wore it like the England badge, I also wore my ignorance as well there, right? So actually, and this showed that I was ignorant, and I became more comfortable with that, and then I
mm,
became like, actually, I don't know everything, and actually, I can't understand everything, but I will give it a try. And so
yeah,
it gave me that humbleness and knowledge as well. And I think that was a real growth for me. And when you
yeah,
can go into any type of circumstance with that humbleness, I think that is huge. And so
yeah,
I've peddled it around that I was a really ignorant individual to start with, and that actually well-meaning, but
mm,
just didn't know what I didn't know.
yeah,
And kind of that is the growth. That's the bit that gives you the confidence that
yeah.
you're aware of your deficit.
Yeah, and
Makes
also
sense.
you're not okay with being in the deficit. You're then moving forward to find out,
Yeah,
and to
yeah,
do
and
that growth,
that
which is important.
yeah, and you can lead with your chin saying,
Yeah,
I am humble
yeah,
rather than I know everything.
absolutely, absolutely. Martine, from your perspective, working with more than one school, but across 40 plus schools.
I think for me, it's connecting with schools and
Mm,
finding their North Star. So, as education professionals, we all want to keep children emotionally and physically safe. So, while I was, and I wrote it down so I make sure I said it correctly, being gently relentless in order to make sure there is a shared understanding of racism as a safeguarding issue, and
mm,
for leaders to understand the psychological harm that racism has in
yeah,
terms of the child from the global majority and those around them. So,
yeah,
in terms of resistance, I think once adults knew that this was to be viewed in the lens of safeguarding,
hmm,
that was how the resistance became lesser because they connected with it. Because safeguarding's non-negotiable. There's no ifs, no buts, no maybes. So to understand it from there, then you could get into, I'd say, more meaningful
yeah.
conversations about curriculum and policy once they knew we're all about keeping children safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having that commonality in of language and of these broad terms like safeguarding, but making sure that racism sits underneath that umbrella and is seen does help bring more people along this journey. I completely agree. Okay, last question. What do you wish more school leaders understood about the difference between training and attending professional learning and leading? Because what both of you have spoken about is leading, not delivering, not attending, but actually leading from the front and leading with your own vulnerabilities and leading with your own knowledge and experience. But what do you wish more school leaders understood about the difference between the two? Go on, Stu.
I haven't got any notes, by the way, Martine. You said I didn't need any notes, but
You
that's
don't
okay.
need notes.
Uh, right, okay.
Because what,
Right.
people
Uh,
ask me, for instance, people ask me all the time, can you come in and can you deliver training? And I say, no, I don't do one-offs. And it sounds bonkers, right? But my thing is about learning, not about this stuff. And it's not about sending out slides, and it's about a process of learning, which is why this has been designed in this way. Um, sorry, Stu, I just completely
no,
interrupted you.
no, because then I can jump on that then, right? So it sounds lame, right? But buy in with both feet. So I was lucky enough to be with 12 other individuals who bought into what we did with both feet. We
Yeah.
bought in with the fact that we didn't know these things. We bought in with the fact that actually this was mind blowing. We had to change the whole scenario. So that when I left that 10 sessions, I think 11 sessions, when I left your company in that first year, I left with more gravity around what I knew, and I actually left I bought into something and I really believed in it. There was an authenticity there. I'd worked hard to understand. I'd worked hard to get better at my own understanding alongside another colleague. And then when we spoke to the staff, the pupils, the parents, when we've dealt with our 1,270 immediate stakeholders within the school, they can see that we speak with earned
Mm.
knowledge and passion and buy-in. It can't be something like this. If I'm describing it as life-changing, that's not a one-day inset where I'm going to have a nice cup of Colombian coffee and leave half an hour early because somebody's fulfilled the criteria of what they needed to earn at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's not like a Zoom call where we turn it off and I'm doing other stuff and then I turn it back on and I go, yes, no, three bags full. It's a piece of life learning that then has its impact, and that gives me more weight and more solidity, which then when people see that,
Mm.
they then are affected by it. They're affected by my passion. They're affected by the way that I've learned. They're affected by my openness, where I say, this is what I was, this is now what I am.
Mm.
And then they go, oh, okay, all right. That's what it is, I think. You can't go to a one day tick box, moment, right? And there are far too many of those things going on in education today. And the reason there are far too many of them is because there's so much change and there's so much on the plate that people can't really pick what's important. It's a different conversation, but I suppose the reason why I say this is because this is important, and I'd shift all of those things off the plate. I genuinely would shift every last bit off if we finish with what Martine said, because when children come into your school and they feel worthy, they feel valued, they feel seen, they feel understood, and they know that you know them,
Mm.
no matter what color they are,
Mm.
because at one point it could have been that actually that there was more barrier in the way because of my ignorance,
Mm.
then when they feel like they've got all of that stuff there, then they'll succeed.
Yeah.
They'll do their GCSEs, they'll trust me, they'll trust the staff will
Yeah.
trust me. Everything works, right? And
Yeah.
then you can deal with all the tick box things that go on after. This piece of learning was not tick box, and that's why actually I can't work out what it is that you do, Rach. I can't work out what it is other than to say it's a piece of work which changes everybody involved for the absolute better, and then they go and they get to change their school for the absolute better for every cohort that leaves. So that's
Yeah.
huge. And that's not a one day tick box, is
No,
it?
no, it's
So,
not. Thank you, Stu. I mean, for anyone having a look at this at another time, I have not paid Stu for these questions.
Nor have I, nor have I.
But
and,
nor has
and
Martine.
right.
But it is that it's the domino effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or the ripple effect. They're both similar effects, same name, different names, same effect. It's the power of somebody that passes on, that passes on, that passes on, that passes on. And that feeling of authenticity is so very important. And every leader has a lot on, and every leader is incredibly busy because the number of tasks is immense. But I think if we go back to core principles and core values and core purpose and moral purpose, actually, what both of you have said is so right in that it's about young people feeling valued and us noticing those barriers that might be in place, not through any fault of that young person, but because of wider systemic issues. And we've got, as leaders, we've got to think longer and deeper about these core issues if we're going to affect change. So yeah, thank you, Stu. Martine, did you want to add anything before we finish?
Just to add, I write down my notes because I'm having to write down what Rachel says so I don't forget. But what I would say in terms of what do I wish school leaders knew, the importance of authentic leadership, because if you do half an hour, 45-minute twilight, it gives you a taste, but it doesn't create real reflective leadership in this space. And in terms of change management, that's what this program has done for schools. It's change management and the domino, ripple, contagion. Schools have FOMO, no matter how much we say they don't. If someone's got a shiny thing, they want it too. And Stuart was part of the original cohort. And when other schools saw the impact it was making, they were like, oh, I'd like to try. And now what we've got Estin coming in, recognising, spotlighting genuine active anti-racism in schools. So what do I wish for school leaders is I wish they understood that in order to have change management, you've got to commit, and you can't have that commitment and knowledge and that cultural competence and confidence. After 45 minutes, you've got to spend the time, the energy to reflect on who you are as a human and what type of school you want to lead. So I think, let's just embrace taking some time to learn and do better.
Thank you, Martine. Really well put. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Carving out that time is the challenge, but we just got to find it, right? And we've got to prioritize it, because if it doesn't come from us, then it will come from very few others, and we've got to be the models of change. So thank you both for your hearts, minds, England t-shirt, all of that. Really appreciate it, especially at this time of year. And I think it's a really important message to go out as school leaders and schools wind down this week, and then we'll reopen again for the start of the new academic year. And let's hope that more leaders prioritise this work, as you both have done so brilliantly. So thank you both, Diolch yn fawr to both of you, and we'll speak soon. Thank you.